What's going on, everybody? This is Fry. So today is a momentous day in the history of PvZ Heroes. Flower Man Flower on his YouTube channel, as you can see, has found some data mining buffs and nerfs potentially that could actually come to the live game. He posted this video with some footage on his YouTube channel. I spoke to Flower Man, and Flower Man apparently has been stalking the dev servers of PvZ Heroes for a long time, very regularly, and this is something that just popped up now. Historically, when one of these pop up on the dev servers, it will make its way to the live server a couple weeks later. So again, I haven't been told anything, but maybe we are actually, after so many years, I don't even remember when the last time we got a balance patch in this game. It's been many, many years. We might be able to get a meta-defining balance patch finally in PvZ Heroes. So he did make this video. I'm going to just flip through this very quickly. I'm not going to be mostly focusing on the video. Instead, there's someone named Kevin who made a comprehensive Google Doc going through exactly every single nerf and buff. As you can see here, it's things, everything. I mean, this is just the footage from playing the game in the dev server. You can see Photosynthesizer, which is a absolutely busted card. Guardian package now costs 2. You saw Galactic Cactus only having 1 health here. And you can see even, like, if we just start flipping through here, I think Triceratops only has 2 health. Here's Primal Walnut only having 8 health. I'm not really sure what that's about. But yeah, just a lot of weird. Some of them are very important, you know, very overpowered oppressive cards getting nerfed, and some of them are just really random stuff like Smackademia getting a 1 health buff because it wasn't good enough. Anyway, let's switch over to Kevin's. He looks like he's editing this as it goes by, since it's just changing right now. But let's go look over at Kevin's, and we're going to be going through the cards one at a time, just in order, starting with plants. It looks like he's editing this right now. Dude, you can't be typing on my... I'm getting stream sniped, Kevin. Can we please have some normality? Okay, that was good. That was good, Kevin. All right, guys, so we're just going to begin. We're going to be going through all the plants first, and then we're going to be going through the zombies. So we're just going to go in order of the classes here. First, we got Guardian Galactic Cactus, as you can see on the screen here. It's a 2/2. It's going to be nerfed to 2/1. So a very, very powerful card. The fact that it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with, I guess, is a slight nerf to Galactic Cactus. A lot of these cards, I want to maybe say something before I get in here, is that I believe most or all of these buffs and nerfs are someone in PopCap, I guess someone works there still, just looking at raw data, just looking at the win rates of each individual card when played in multiplayer in general. They do have those statistics, and again, Galactic Cactus would be getting a nerf because it had an above average win rate when people run this in a deck. Photosynthesizer also, it costs 1, it's going to be nerfed to 2. It has an above average win rate. I think that's going to make some of these buffs and nerfs very good, and some of them are going to be pretty garbage. Now, here's one I think is really important and really, really meta-defining, and that's Triceratops. This has been one of the most oppressive cards in the history of PvZ Heroes. 2 costs 1/2, I think, is fine. It's still a very powerful card. First of all, you don't have Photosynthesizer anymore, which was probably the top synergy card with Triceratops. But yeah, this going down to 1/2 means it's able to be answered by Beam Me Up, an Extinction event, the turn it's played. Just makes it, just able to answer a little bit more easily in general. So I think that is a pretty good thing overall. Thank you, Raids, for subscribing for 10 months. Rads. Anyway, let's just keep going on right now. We have Spikeweed Sector. See, this is one that I don't think... There's 2 reasons why a card could have a very high win rate. One is that it's overpowered in itself, but the second is the fact that it could just be appearing in decks that are overpowered, and Spikeweed Sector is, well, I mean, the card itself is not the perpetrating cause, but it's just a card that's rarely ever run, and when it's run, it's always being put into good decks, and that makes a specific card have a high win rate. I think that's going to apply to some things. I'm not really sure what the thing with Spikeweed Sector is, because I found this less and less useful as a control card over the years, and now making this go from 2 costs to 3 costs, I mean, I don't really know exactly what this is about. All right. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the Spikeweed Sector. The next is Marine Bean, which we have as, it starts as 3/2 stats and can grow from there to 4/3. You know, if there's one other amphibious minion on the board, having 2 other amphibious on the board is hard to pull off. But 4/3 is still respectable stats. Now it starts as a base of 3 cost 3/3, which is very, you know, average stats for a 3 cost card, and then it'll already be a 4/4. If you have even one more amphibious minion. There's going to be other amphibious cards that also are getting buffs. That seems to be one of the themes of this balance patch. And all right, let's continue. Primal Walnut, so we know, has 9 health. And they are going to be nerfing it to 8 health. By the way, there's not going to be any potential, as it says over here, any ability changes. None of the abilities of cards apparently have changed, at least from what we've seen through the data mining. It makes a lot of sense. They're not going to be, you know, recoding cards and make them do completely different abilities. It's a lot easier just to change one of the numbers, giving a little extra health or a little more attack or something like that. All right, and then they did Smackademia. Okay, so what about Primal Walnut? What is my reaction to this? I don't see this as being an overly oppressive card, but again, it's possible that this was just run. It's not very common, but the decks that it was run in have a particularly high win rate. I think this is a perfect candidate for that. And really, honestly, is the difference between being a 0/9 and a 0/8 really going to make any difference in this card? Again, this is the change that you make also has to sort of be informed, not just from raw data, but from having some experience in the game. And in my experience, I don't think this going down from 9 health to 8 health is going to make really any difference whatsoever. I would say probably the similar thing against Macadamia, 4/4, and then it goes up to 4/6, so now it's going to be a 4/5 and go up to 4/7, so 7 health instead of 6 health. Like, the problem with Macadamia is that it just didn't do enough for a 5-cost card. 5-cost cards take over games. I don't think adding a little bit of health to Macadamia is going to really make any difference. Again, I think it's just a little bit of a lacking experience of the actual game in some of these decisions here. But anyway, let's keep on going. Puffshroom. So Puffshroom has a particularly high win rate. I totally believe that. Making it from 0 cost to 1 cost, though, is so oppressive. I mean, that's so much more than like a little stat change. That is a really, really big deal. I don't think also Little Buddy, I don't believe Little Buddy got nerfed, the other 0 cost card. So this would leave Little Buddy in the Solar class as being the only 0 cost card. I feel like this kind of just makes Puffshroom unplayable. Again, Puffshroom will have a high win rate with Pine Clone, so maybe that needs to be taken a look at with Cycle Caps, and maybe, I don't you know what, I don't know. It's Puffshroom, man. Next we got Blooming Heart. So this feels like, when I'm going to be going through the Kabloom class here, I kind of feel like directly, personally attacked, because a lot of the cards you're going to see nerfed are going to be components of the deck, the budget deck. The one I've been suggesting for plant budget players to be playing through the years is Aggro Solar Flare. This will go down from 2/2 to 2/1. You also are going to have a really weird card, Zapricot. I'll skip to that one now. Going from 4/2 down to 4/1 stats, as you can see over here. And again, is Zapricot overpowered? I think this is a perfect example I was talking about of it. No one runs Zapricot except in Aggro Solar Flare. And Aggro Solar Flare as a deck as a whole, with the Pumpkins, with the Blooming Hearts, with the Zapricots, Zapricot ends up having an extremely high win rate because no one runs it except for in a good deck. Even though Zapricot is not the problem. Zapricot's probably the weakest card in Aggro Solar Flare, but it statistically has a super high win rate. I think that's what's going on here. As opposed to Berry Blast, which is a way better card. This is one of the best cards in the game, but it might even have a lower win rate than Zapricot because everybody and their grandma runs Berry Blast. Anyway, you guys understand what I have to say. I don't have to reiterate this again. I'll reiterate it, though, when it comes up again and again in this list. Okay, so we have Blooming Heart being a 2-1. We got Hot Lava going down to 0 cost. I love this because I actually found a use for Hot Lava this past year in the deck where we do, like, Imitate or Mirror Nut. We also are running the Hibernating Berries. The 0 cost Hot Lava makes a big difference because you can spam this like together with a Mirror Nut on turn 4. That's actually like, again, not a super overpowered deck, but it's something. I guess this could be a nice little answer to some environment. I don't really get it. I don't think this is going to see a lot of play because it really just doesn't. The problem is that it doesn't do enough. That's the problem. The problem isn't the 1 cost versus 0. All right, so we got Invasive Species coming up next, going down from 3 cost 2/4 to a 2 cost 1/4. So 2 cost 1/4 in an environment, it'll basically be a 4/4. I think that's definitely an overall buff because, again, 3 costs, this really has not seen the light of day. It probably could be a very more useful card in environments. The problem is environments already cost 2, though. All plant environments, except for now Hot Lava, cost 2. And so when are you still going to end up really playing this on turn 3? I guess you can play this on turn 2 and then play an environment on it the next turn. Maybe that will work, and maybe that will unlock some of the plant environments being a little bit more useful. You can go like the card that gets buffed by environments, Cosmos. You can go Cosmos on 1, Invasive Species on 2, and then some kind of environment on turn 3, and that would end up being like a tempo play. I'm not really sure about this, but again, I don't see the importance of buffing Invasive Species, but I guess it has a really low low win rate. All right, what else have we got? Seedling. Okay, this one I love. This is just a quality of life change, is that it's going to go from 1 health to 2 health. So instead of dying to almost everything, instead of dying to literally everything, now it dies to almost everything. Like, I don't know what the difference is going to be. I guess Nibble doesn't kill it anymore. I guess you can stick this in front of a gravestone and hope it's teleportation zombie, and then, this will actually block it and live. This actually could end up being a pretty decent answer to Space-Time, now that I think of it. They play Space-Time dry on turn 2, a very popular play. You play the 0-2 in front of it. It blocks Space-Time. Already got value there, and then it flips into something. Obviously, the card it changes into is very unreliable and is usually like only a 1-cost card, so since there's an abundance of 1s in the game. Again, that's the smart problem with Seedling, but they just buff the health. I could see this being 0-3. I would actually love to see that having 3 health. I think that would actually make it a somewhat balanced card. All right, here's a big one. I mean, this looks like such a one of the worst meme cards in the game, getting buffed so hard to the point where I think it's problematic. Sizzle goes from 5 costs to 3 costs. So now in the Kabloom class, you got 2 costs, do 3 damage, Berry Blast. Now we got Sizzle coming in at 3 costs, doing 5 damage. It's like a mini, fruitcake. It's like the fruitcake, the exploding fruitcake of the plant side. Really, really powerful. I mean, this will definitely see a lot of play. This is going to become a auto-include in Kabloom decks just to be able, as a control card, but also as a tempo card. It's almost like a little Shamrocket at this point. This seems very overpowered, but hey, you know what? I think the Kabloom class really, considering, Guardian and Solar have really dominated the meta, and then maybe even Smarty after that, just because of, Rose and Citron. I think really the Kabloom class has fell in grace a lot. It might even be the worst class. And if this is the kind of, needs a little overpowered, a little something, I think this is good. And I think this could make the Kabloom class legitimately a control class. This is a lot of damage. This is not just a medium size. This is a big boy control card.
I'm the guy
very high value. So I kind of like that. That's cool. We also got Lava Guava, the other Kabloom control card, seeing no play at 5, is now going to cost 4. So it's kind of like a chickening. Also kind of does environment. I think this could actually be very decent at 4. And maybe we'll see a meta where Kabloom actually is a control class. Who the heck knows? We also got Poison Oak, which is, again, a very sad finisher. 4-5 going up to 5-6. So this will actually do 10 damage if you include the anti-hero, which, is half your opponent's health. I think there's cutoff there, like Poison Oak, Time to Shine, basically could win a game, something like that. I like it. I don't see why it's necessary, but I like it. And who knows, Poison Oak, I'd love to see it have the light of day. Oh, here's a good one that I did not notice. Black Eyed Pea. extremely oppressive card, especially for Immorticia and Brainstorm and heroes who just, huge Giganticus that can't deal with him. This going down from 2-3 to 2-2 is a big freaking deal. By the way, the stonks of Swashbuckler are going to go way through the roof. We have this whole debate for years if Swashbuckler is worth it, and because it runs into 2-3s and dies miserably. This is the 2-cost 2-3 on the plant side that kills Swashbuckler for free. That no longer does. It's an even trade now, and that's a pretty big deal. Again, Juggernaut, some people run, but it's not nearly as common as Black Eyed Peas auto-include in every single Mega Grow deck. I like this. I think 2-2, I don't think that's under... I mean, it's a little underpowered, but I think it's balanced because the ability of Black IP is just insane. And it's really a hard counter to just so many strategies. So I really like that. We also got Podfather coming in. So Peas get a nerf, but then they get a huge buff that's going up to 2-3. And again, this will not die now to beam me up to Extinction Event. You're really going to need a significant control card to take this out. So the turn 3, this is a plant too, so the opponent's already committed a brain or two sometimes on turn 3. But the turn 3 Podfather play is actually theoretically going to be viable. It doesn't die to a Bungee Plumber now, This really does. The difference between 2 and 3 health in this game is enormous, especially for a plant. For an expensive plant, for a 3-cost plant. That's expensive, I know. Alright, so we got Cosmic P. Oh, here we go. Ohio P. One of the worst cards in PvZ Heroes is going from 3-cost 1-1 to 4-cost 2-2. So it's basically a 1 more expensive repeater, which would be, again, 3-cost 2-2. That's double strike, but it draws a card. Who knows? I mean, it's definitely a net buff, because it's not a 1-1 anymore, and yeah, who knows, maybe like with Podfather, and this will give you card draw, so you're able to play even more Ps. I don't think this is, no, it's not good, but it's better. I'm the kind of guy who wants to make anything viable, so I feel like this is now at least within the range of viability, barely. Still not good. Alright, then we got Potted Powerhouse, which again, the problems are if it doesn't end up in your starting hand, it's a goner. If you get it late, it bricks. But their solution was turn it from a 3-3 into a 4-4. Look, it's a little bit of a buff, but I don't think that's the problem with Potted Powerhouse. When you have 5-cost cards, they need to be reliable and not dead if they don't start in your starting hand. And maybe making this scale a little bit faster would, making it a 2-2 and make it scale faster. I think that probably would be the more, even make it a 1-1 and make it gain 2-2 every single time. I feel like that would be better than just adding some base stats, but I guess it's technically a little more reliable. Just to be a 5-5-5, it just needs to see 1 grow on the board. Okay, then we got Bamboozle, useless card being a 6-cost card draw card at 5-6. So the solution again is now 6-6. That's not going to make a difference for an expensive card in PvZ Heroes, period. I can't see this ever seeing play still, but who knows? We got Super Fat Beats going from 3-3 to 4-4 now. It's still going to have the same abilities. So again, it's a big card that doesn't have any abilities, doesn't take over games, and now it's slightly bigger, just slightly. Not a huge buff there, but anyway. Alright, here's one that adding a little health really makes a big difference. Going to the Smarty class, we got Laser Cattail, one of the many amphibious cards getting buffed here. And this going from 2-1 to 2-2 is a big deal. Because that means if this is buffed even one time, it's a 3-3, which is great stat. 3-2 is not a great stats for a 2-cost card. 3-3 is. So this, again, contingent on getting one other card teamed up with, ends up having great stats. It also means the 2-1 version of the Cattail, before it gets its buff, doesn't die to Nibble and just everything, a little barrel splash. I like this. I think this is a pretty good way to balance this card. I think this could actually, be viable. Again, it's amazing, maybe not, but viable. I love that. Electric Reed, one of the absolute Lightning Reed, one of the worst cards ever in PvZ Heroes, going from 1-2 stats to 2-2. So now it's at least a 2-2-2, so it's not like just pinging your opponent's block meter endlessly and giving them free block charge. At least it's doing some damage. It's also doing splash, so it's kind of, think of it, if it's hitting one thing, it's kind of like a 3-2. It's almost like Rotobega now, in terms of the overall effects of the damage. It's still doing splash damage 1, though. It's hard to imagine running this card, but hey, maybe in an amphibious deck. Maybe an amphibious deck. Maybe this will actually see some play now. Moving right along, Mayflower. A very fun card, but very sad stats at 3 cost 2/3 is now going to be 2/4. That's a pretty big difference. I mean, again, it's just a lot harder to deal with now, and it being able to stay in the amphibious lane and infinitely draw you cards, it could be that will really work out for Mayflower. I think that's actually a pretty good buff, since again, this is usually going to be something answered by Trick, so that little extra health will make it survive a lot of different Trick combo cutoffs in terms of doing 3 or 4 damage. All right, this one is perplexing. And this one, I think, is the biggest proof to my entire theory of how these nerfs and buffs came about. Bean Counter. This card at 2/2, nobody runs Bean Counter. It sucks. We've tried. I've tried doing ramp to Bean Counter. We've tried running this in Onion Rings decks in order to get the 2 little weenie beanies buffed. And then, I mean, it's not good at 2/2, and they're nerfing this to 1/1. I mean, this is just, but again, Bean Counter probably, since no one runs it, probably does have a very high win rate relative to other cards, because the only people running it have some clever idea up their sleeve, like the few times we have run Bean Counter in the past, and we get these 70% win rates, and all of a sudden this card is overpowered. This has to be the explanation. Why would this get nerfed? This needs a buff. I could see this going up to 4 cost 3/3, or giving a 3rd weenie beanie or something, or getting just down to 3 cost 2/2. I think that would actually be probably really good for Bean Counter, 3 cost 2/2. But anyway, we're living in the universe, in the alternate reality where Bean Counter is overpowered and it's getting nerfed from 2/2 to 1/1. I don't know. That's my explanation for it. And for all this, we got Cartillery going from 5/2 to 5/3. I kind of like that. Is this a viable aggro card now? I think it might be. 5/3, I mean, like, Elderberry is 5/4. I know it's strike through, so it's not a perfect comparison. But this is team up, and it also doesn't require an upgrade. 5/3, they get different between 2 and 3 health, and things that are going to be answered by Tricks is a big freaking deal. I think this could actually see some play. I'm excited for that. Ooh, Navy Bean now. Going from base of 2/2 to base of 3/3. So this is already a 4 cost, 4/4 amphibious team up Bean. I mean, that's like good, and then it's also buffing all your other amphibious plants. This is a huge buff, especially because, again, this is one of the only cards with amphibious synergy. The fact that this really packs a punch, being a 4 cost 4/4, which is good stats for a 4 coster. I like it, man. After it's buff, it's a 3/3, it buffs itself to 4/4. Love it. Then we got Melon Pulse, also a very sad card, going from 3/4 to 3/5. This I don't see as being a very big difference, because again, the difference between 2 and 3 health is huge. The difference between a 3/3 and a 4/4 is massive. The difference between a 3/4 and a 3/5, I don't see it, man. I don't see this really making any difference for sad old Melon Pulse. All right, here's a nerf that was long time discussed and long time coming. Extremely oppressive card, overstated on the plant side, is Haunted Pumpkin, going from 4/2 down to 4/1. So now, again, it's not only high risk in conjuring your opponent a card, but also it's gonna be answered by Nibble and Trapper territory and a splash of a barrel, a Z-Mech, like Z-Mech Super. Now the passive ability Splash will kill Haunted Pumpkin. This is a huge nerf. Probably deserved, though, because the 4/2 is really overpowered for 1 cost card. And again, I think this is just part of the aggro solar flare performed well across every single rank, like literally from rank 10 all the way up to rank 50. And I'm guessing that's what happened. Apple Saucer, oh my god, yeah. Aggro solar flare is not even going to be a deck anymore. 3/2 to 3/1, just makes it a really easily answerable card. Here's a really neat one that I love. This is going to be Magnifying Grass, going up from 1 health to 2 health, same ability. We have found some uses for this. I really love the decks where we ramp up to, Chomsilla and do Magnifying Grass with either Plant Food or Espresso Fiesta. The 2 health makes a difference because it doesn't automatically die when you play it on the field, and there are some opportunities where you really want to play a Magnifying Grass somewhere, and, having that extra health will definitely keep it alive a little bit more. Love that. Here's Venus Flytrap. Ooh. See, I didn't go through this list, so you're seeing a lot of these. I've seen a lot of these are my live reaction. I did not see this one. Venus Flytrap going from 2/2, which is very sad stats, to 3/1, which is pretty bad stats for a 3 cost card, but that means now it's healing for 3. This is a not only more healing, it means it's going to be doing, like, with plant food now, could be a card after Venus Flytrap Planet. Just trying to think how this would play out, but it's also not going to be losing. 2/2s lose trades. 3/1s even trade with a lot, with 1, 2, or 3 cost cards in this game. So I like this. This could actually end up being a viable card. So again, it's still not great. It's definitely not as good as Catch a Mechanic. Not even close, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe this can end up seeing some play. Oh, here's Elderberry getting hit. It's going from 2/4 to 2/3. So now when this is upgraded, wow, it's only going to have 3 health. This is... The difference between 3 and 4, again, it's not a massive nerf. It's not going to make the big difference. It's significant. It just makes this card easier to deal with. A little easier. Not massively easier. So will then now be a 5/3 instead of a 5/4. It's basically Astrocado now. When you upgrade, it'll be a 5/3, the same stats. It's something. Elderberry's a really good card. I'm not surprised to see it has a big win rate. Okay, this one makes a difference, though. Cob Cannon going from a 6/6 to a 4/6. Huge nerf, just in terms of its power. Cob Cannon, even the 4/6 version, I think, is still a really, really big card because, again, it destroys zombies for free as long as you have team-ups available. It has the passive 1/1, but at least now you're not getting this late game takeover, like, finisher monster. Like, this is going to be a removal card, a counter to a lot of things, but at least it shouldn't have insane stats in terms of its damage, too. I love this. I could have even seen a bigger nerf, but I like a nice hefty nerf to a late game card that, again, is one of the most oppressive cards in PvZ Heroes. It just does way too much for a 6 cost card. Now it's understated. There's a big liability of having Cob Cannon now in your deck as your removal card. Because before, even if you didn't get the team up, it's still a 6 cost 6/6 with a great passive ability. Having a 6 cost 4/6 when you're playing against a control deck, when you don't have your team up, you don't have a good option, something really to counter with it. Having a 6 cost 4/6 in your deck is a liability, and I like the fact that it is a liability somewhat instead of being automatic value. Here's Cat Lady now. We're going over to the zombie side with the Beastly class. Cat Lady going from 4 health to 5 health. There's a lot of pet cards getting buffed here, which is cool. We only really had success with his OTK Cat Lady, but at 5 health, man. I mean, that is really, for a 1-cost card, really difficult to deal with. Who knows? Maybe this, and I'll skip one Synchronized Swimmer for a second and go to Zookeeper. This going from 2/2 to 1/3 is also a big deal. 1/3 health on turn 2 is not easy to remove, unless they got Berry Blast. But 1/3 is definitely better because it lives longer, and then you're able to spam a lot of pets the next turn. I think these two changes could end up making pets. Let's see exactly how, but it definitely could make pets viable, much more viable than they've been, because pets, again, except for OTK Cat Lady, have in general been terrible. All right, we're going to go back now to Synchronized Swimmer. This one's hilarious, and this feels like a change that was made by someone who's not only has never played PvZ Heroes, but didn't even read the cards. This doesn't make sense to me. It's being nerfed from 2/2 to 2/1. Synchronized Swimmer, in 99 out of 100 times, is going to be copying another card, stats of the other card in the field. So this will make 0 difference. The only time this would make difference is on an empty field, which anyway, a 2 cost 2/2 is terrible. Think of what the win rate of Synchronized Swimmer is when it's played in a deck dry, like not copying any stats. I bet the win rate is like 20%. You're losing if you're playing Synchronized Swimmer as a 2 cost 2/2. It means your hand sucks. That's what it means. It means you have a Quasar in your hand you gotta activate, so you gotta put a minion on the board. It means you have nothing good happen. I'm sure the win rate of this being played as a 2/2 is abysmal. It probably has a 10% win rate. This doesn't make sense. But hey, it's a nerf. Synchronized Swimmer, though, as a card, has a very high win rate. That I believe. When it's actually copying the stats of something, it's insanely good. It's a 2 cost 5/5. But yeah, it doesn't have as much. It's gonna be nerfed to 1/1 as well. It wouldn't make any difference. This doesn't make sense. But again, without changing the ability of the card, well, you can change the cost. Make this a 3-cost card. That would make sense. That would be a nerf. Anyway, make it cost 3, but yep, it's a 2/1 now. All right, well, we're gonna go to some another pet that got buffed. Kangaroo. This is again card, one of the worst cards, abysmal win rate. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. 4-3 is not enough stats. We're going up to 4-4. But it still gets answered by any little boop, any little banana, any little galactic cactus explodes and it's gone. It doesn't, especially on a card that bounces when it gets hit. Oh, why would the health matter? Make the tab attack, but give it 6 attack. Make it a 6-3. You know, make this whole card cost 3. Just a 3-cost 4-3 that gets bounced. That would be a good buff, but not this. And I'm going to say the same thing for Cheese Shover. Again, the problem isn't it dies too easily. It's not enough stats. The problem is that you play this on the board, it's only controlling the thing that they played last turn. Plus, it has a condition of destroying that plan. You need to have something small and worth it to destroy your own. You know? That's the problem. The problem wasn't the stats. It's a little bit of a buff. And here's another one that's also, I mean, this is this is a little brain rot. Vengeful Cyborg being run in a deck has an extremely low win rate. So now we're going to make it from 5-5 to 5-6. The problem is that I would be willing to bet that 95%, I'm going to be willing to bet 99% of the Vengeful Cyborgs that have been played in the history of this game have been spawned, have been conjured in your hand from literally one of the best cards, independently best cards in the game, Cyborg Zombie. Really good stats, really good meta, obviously, against Triceratops and you know, all these cards that'll even trade and give you a card. 99% of Vengeful Cyborgs are... So, Cyborg Zombie just got buffed. Now, instead of making a mediocre big card, now it's going to be making a slightly more mediocre card. I'm sure this has a high win rate. Good beastly players run Cyborg Zombie. Let's be real, guys. So, this is just not... This 5-cost 5-6 Vengeful Cyborg is still not worth running your deck under any circumstances. I mean, just look, it's sitting right next to like Supernova Guard, which is just objectively better in all ways. So it's just gonna end up buffing. It's just gonna end up buffing Little Borg now. But anyway, all right. You know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they just know better than I do. I don't even know who they is. No one knows who they is. Here comes the brainy class. Electrician. So 2-2 going up to 2-3. I like this. I really, really like this. I love Electrician. The design of this card is beautiful. It's an understated card that makes a bonus attack, which is a big ability. It's also a science card. So now this, we have 3 health. So again, difference in 2 and 3 health, massive in this game. It means that this lives, so it can get buffed by your drone engineers. It can be a target for a card like Sugary Treat or like Area 22, something that will buff it. And then it's another guy that's going to be attacking when you play Gadget Scientist. So having, again, the reason we really like, you know, Gatekeeper and Teleportation Zombie, the very high health science cards, is because they live on the board and they're going to be around for when you Gadget Scientist, which is the big heavy hitter of the science tribe. I'm going to skip right to... Oh my gosh, I'm going to skip right to Gadget Scientist because I know it's on this list. Sorry, I just saw Zomblob and my mind is being blown right now. But we're going to skip to... I'll get to that right after this. Gadget Scientist going from 2-3 to 3-3. Big deal. I mean, this is huge, this one attack, because it's on the minion. It's also the amount of damage it's doing. And again, you one turn killing with Gadget Scientist. We had a lot of success over the last couple of years doing science decks with the crazy science, and then the best one was the Immorticia, the helicopter decks. This is doing more attack. I mean, this is a big deal. Science is, I think science is underrated. The ones that if you're playing it well with the Gadget Scientists and either Drone Engineer buff or Helicopter, 2 different ways of playing it. It's a big deal. You put this into an Area 22, all of a sudden this is doing 5 damage now instead of 4. This is a really big deal. Alright, cool. I love to see science getting buffed though. That's awesome. It's not top tier, and now, who knows, maybe it will be. This one is very surprising to me. Zomblob goes from 1.5 to 2.5. Did Zomblob not have a high enough win rate? This honestly is a top tier card. You can run this in any brainy deck as long as you got teleports. You don't even need a whole lot. The proof of that is the optimized version of Tele-Imps runs Blob. You run Imps as control, and you just run Blobs. You're finished. You don't need Brain Vendor. You don't need anything. If you have Brain Vendor, it's a bonus. I like running a couple Brain Vendors. But, you know, this will come in on turn 6 and just be a 7 attack card automatically. Use a bonus attack, you're dead. This is getting buffed now. I can't believe it.
Blob Ganticus, let's go blob, blob, blob. I just blobbed everywhere.
But again, it's very possible that most people who run Blob don't use it well. They're not running it in the right kinds of decks. It's kind of like this budget finisher, which is not, you know, it's rare. It's not, and besides for the rare class here, the rarity. It's rare to have proper finishers, PvZ Heroes. Most finishers are like Trickster, Viking, Mechasaur. They're legendaries, you know? So maybe it's ended up getting this card overplayed, especially in lower ranks and having extremely low win rate, so it needs a buff. I don't really get it, but that one's really, really surprising to me. Okay, here's something cool. Portal Technician. Going from 4-4 to 5-4. You know, I think this is actually a significant buff, because the difference between 4 and 5 damage for a 5-cost card, it's pretty big. It means that this is 4 is a medium-sized threat, 5 is a big threat. 5 is a quarter of their health. And it means that you now have to answer Portal Technician, and then its ability will activate more often because it needs to be answered. The problem with Portal Technician is you put it as a 5-cost 4-4, ignore it. Just develop your 5-cost card, that your Picanolith, your, you know what I mean, your Astrocado that's doing so much more in a different lane, and ignore this card and just race them. But now, racing becomes less viable, which makes the passive now, the when destroyed, a lot better. I like this. I could even see this going up to 6 attack, but I really like this. Here's one that's I'm finding a little perplexing here. Here's Zombot Dinotronic Mechasaur. Obviously, it's supposed to be this big finisher. Did I miss Trick or Treater? You're right. I missed 2 of them earlier, so I'll go back. My bad. There's a Trick or Treater and Gentleman Zombie. I'll go right back to them. So here's Mechasaur. I think this was actually an okay card at 6-7. It does, I mean, the idea of Mechasaur is not its stats taking over the game. The 6 damage, the bullseye, it's cool, but the point is that if they have a big removal card, or they're able to Brainana / Dragon you when you're trying to teleport this in, then this doesn't do anything. But if they don't have the answer, if they don't have the weight of the Shamrocket, this takes over the game, because every card you draw just makes a medium to big size minion on the board. I don't know, buffing this to 8-8, I guess it didn't have a high enough win rate? I don't understand this now. First of all, I don't understand why this didn't have a high enough win rate. It seems like Mechasaur is actually pretty decent. Mostly when I see it run, it's being run properly. It's being teleported in. People are smart with this card. Smart players play Mechasaur, but I don't really get. But then it's also, I mean, I could see the cost increasing, but the stats, the cost, well, no, it's a buff. Why is this getting buffed? I don't understand. I'll go back to the cards that I missed, though. I don't get the Mechasaur change. I don't get why it's necessary, and I don't get why it's a huge stat buff. 8-8? This has Octo Zombie level stats now. It's a big buff. This is like you don't even have to use it for the minions. Just teleport in a Mustache Monument on turn 7 and just whomp 8 damage bullseye on turn 8. This thing is massive now. I think we should do teleport in Mechasaur on turn 8, Gadget Scientist on turn 9. That's a 16 damage, and then Gadget does 3, so that's a 19 damage combo. I like it. We'll be doing that. Yep, so I'll go back to the ones that I missed. 2 really good ones that I love here. Here's Gentleman Zombie, very poor stats at 3 cost 2-2. This will obviously get more value the more turns it's on the board, giving you that extra 2 brains every turn. Going up to 1-4. So again, it didn't need to have power, and it did need to have more. So that's a huge buff. I mean, huge buff. This is a really impossible card to deal with on turn 3. What answers is Gravebuster? Health Nut. Like, almost nothing in the game does 4 damage. which is why, you know, Flame Face, which by the way did not get, I don't think they touched Flame Face. We'll get to the sneaky class soon. Flame Face, such a difficult card to deal with. This basically has Flame Face, you know, amounts of health. Being 1/4, this will make it a lot more viable. Obviously, you can still do the thing where you teleport it in and then you get the extra brains, the ramp next turn. But this will just live on the board a few times. You can start buffing this. Has Mustache Synergy. I don't know if that will play a role. We also got a little buff to an understated card, which I think also is okay. This isn't one of the cards I felt like really needed a buff. Gentleman Zombie, by the way, was very good in like Gentleman Ramp. Look up some of the look up Fry 'em Up Gentleman Zombie if you want to see the Immorticia decks that I run that in. I really love it. Trick or Treater going from 2/3 to 2/4. I mean, this is a really, really, really good card now. Being a Gravestone, 2/4. It has the same stats and it's going to be automatic. I mean, again, you can't answer it. So this is even if he plays Dry on turn 3, this will draw a card on turn 4 most of the time, which is really, really good. And sometimes, again, even now as a 2/3, if you play a Healthy Treat on this, all of a sudden Trick or Treater's around drawing you many, many, many cards. I like that. Again, it's Trick or Treater is a threat. I love Trick or Treater. Really cool card design. All right, Con Man not getting nerfed. However, Grave Robber going from 2/2 to 2/1, making it easier to answer. Honestly, what was a better card? Con Man or Grave Robber? Who's better? Con Man is the better card. Let's be real. At these stats. But instead of nerfing Con Man to 1/2, I guess. I don't know how you would even nerf Con Man. It's hard card to nerf.
You should do Brainstorm Control, but with Swimmer instead of Vok before it gets nerfed. Fry MUPLUL. Fry MUPLUL.
Swimmer. Brainstorm can't do that. So Grave Robber is going to get a 2/1. I mean, this was kind of oppressive in the Infinity aggro decks when you, like, buff it, you know, when you play a Flame Face and then this goes up to 3/2 strike through. I still don't see it, and maybe like good players run Grave Robber. I think like a lot of players would say, well, it's Mustache, Pirate, Gravestone. You got to get Gravestones with this. That's the whole point of the card. And good players just realize, hey, it's a nice solid aggro card. So like it's possible bad players run Con Man a lot, but only good players run Grave Robber. I'm just trying to make up an excuse why this card would be getting nerfed. And that's why it has a high win rate. Con Man becoming a 2/2 would be a nerf. You're right. You could make this into a 2/2. That would make sense. That would make sense. Despite overall better, if you know, you know. All right, let's move on to Abracadaver. Here's a card. Very cool design. You know what I mean? High risk, high reward. 3/2 going up to 3/3. So first of all, it'll survive more so you can use some clearing cards the next turn. Like you place on turn 3, they put something in front of it. You're able to then clear that and then open up the lane for it. So that's awesome. And it's also at least going to be par stats of 3-cost 3/3 for a 3-cost card. So it makes this from a high risk, high reward card to now very low risk, high reward card. I love Abracadaver like this, especially now if you buff it with Headstone Carver. It's a 4/4. There's something there, man. That's cool. Cake Explosion, one of the most useless cards ever because of how little it does, going down to 3. So this is almost like the this is gonna be Sizzle on the zombie side. Why does this one not do 5? What's better, Plant Tricks or Plant Tricks are better than Zombie Tricks? Shamrocket is more oppressive than Rocket Science because it doesn't take a big commitment to play. This you got to leave over brains, but for some reason, again, going the same thing that Plant Trick ends up being 5 damage, and then Cake Explosion, the counterpart 3 cost, only does 4 damage. So I think that's also misinformed, but hey, is this going to ever replace Exploding Fruitcake? I don't think so. I don't think this one's going to get... At 5 damage, this would see a lot of play. At 4, even 3 cost 4 damage, being stuck kind of between Bungee Plumber, the small removal, and Fruitcake, the big removal. It's definitely better. Garg Throwing Imp is next. Instead of being a 5 cost, this is a very cool card again, but it only has 2/2 stats. It's also very late game for not being itself a finisher. It has a very weird condition of making the Gargs. But now, 5 cost 2/2, going down to 4 cost. I have to slide this over here so you guys can see. Looks like it fits. 4 cost 1/2, which is a huge buff. You can play this a whole turn earlier, which is a big deal for a card like this. It really has these tricky, you want to combine it with a barrel, with a splash, get it in front of some team-ups. This is a huge buff, and I think you can really see this meta. This is also, again, a 4-cost card. Even if it makes that one card, it's making a 5-cost Gargs. All Gargs cost 5. Well, it's always making 5-cost Gargs. So it's a 4-cost card, a slow one that makes almost like a Barrel of Deadbeards. 2-cost card that makes a 3, you know? So this is going to be a 4 that makes a 5. I like it. Flamenco Zombie. This has to be, again, my explanation. Why is this getting nerfed? I mean, we just, this 6 months ago, figured out the really good binary flamenco deck. Maybe people had discovered this before and we just didn't know about it, you know? But this card apparently has a high win rate, and therefore it needs a nerf. By the way, the 1 health and 2 health on this card doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter. There's no situation where flamenco is only taking 1 damage and therefore winning the game. Or it never, on turn 5, it never makes a difference. This isn't even a card you really play on turn 5. You play this on like 6 or 7. This does. I don't think this makes a difference. Whether or not it deserves a nerf or not, I don't think the 1 health difference makes any kind of difference here. Here's one I like. Discotron. Terrible card, being a 4-cost, you know. But giving up 5/5, difference between a 4/4 and a 5/5, it's a big deal. It's a big threat now. It doesn't die as easily, packs a bigger punch, guards some other lanes. This could see some play. I like it. I don't know if it doesn't seem like it's going to be great, but I like it. I like cool, fun, wacky cards with cool designs, both in terms of its art and its functionality. I like that getting some love. Here's one that is, I think, meta-defining. Leftovers going from 2 to 1. I mean, this literally is on par with, like, Healthy Treat. As long as you have 2 minions on the board, it's 4/4 worth of stats, which Healthy Treat's an overpowered card. I mean, just think of this card in a deck with Flag Zombie, where he's spamming a lot of guys on the board. Teacher, making this now, leftovers are going to cost 0. This is going to see a ton of play at 1. This is such a good tempo card. Even just like Con Man on turn 1, Con Man on 2, and leftovers. Just like that. Now instead of 2 1/3s on the board, you got 2 2/4 bullseyes. Just if it's hitting 2 minions, if it's hitting 3, 4, 5, I mean, this is a 1 cost. Damn. Who knows? Maybe we'll even see Turkey Rider see some play now, since it's actually making an okay card. Probably not. No one's gonna run Turkey Rider. You're just gonna run leftovers. It's on par with Camel Crossing, but if anything, makes things make. I'd rather my cards get 1/1 than to get 0/2 in, I'd say, 75% of the time, because now you're going from a losing trade. Like I have a 2/2 against a 2/3. If you give it 2 extra health, it's even trading. If you give it 1 attack and 1 health, it's up trading into a 2/2 against a 2/3, let's say. So yeah, really big. This is going to be one of the biggest deals in this. We got Lost Coliseum going from 3 cost, moving right along to 2 cost. Again, this was too expensive, and now it's on par for a 2 cost card. You can even like play this. It won't necessarily, if it doesn't get destroyed, it'll still, be doing things the next turn. It's just more, I feel like this is going to be more like combining it with a Trickster, combining it with, teleportation zombie. You're playing Lost Coliseum and then something on top of it. Give it Frenzy. Almost think of it as like a cheap Area 22, That's like a minion. I like this. I don't think this is overpowered. I think this card packs a punch. I'm actually very excited to see what Lost Coliseum at 2 cost does to every Hardy deck. I think there's not going to be a Hardy deck. This is not going to be viable. It'll be viable in everything. So this is very cool. Yeah, you can go Dry Coliseum and then put something on top of it, as long as obviously there's still Shamrocket. That still didn't get touched. Shamrocket didn't get nerfed whatsoever. I like it. Moving right along, we're going to Landscaper, which is an understated card. Again, love the design of this. Going from 2/2 to 2/3. I don't see really the difference between 2-2 and 2-3 for this card because its presence on the board isn't a big deal. The main thing is the ability. No one's running this for stats. The only difference it's going to make is that now it'll survive a little longer, so then you can play Mixed Up Gravedigger if you're Neptuna exactly, and then pop into a Gravestone and reactivate the ability, or maybe Encrypt. Or maybe, I guess even just being a minion that survives with going viral, with leftovers, for example. You know, this would have died, and now, all of a sudden, you got your 2-1, still has some stats left on the field, and it's another minion getting hit by leftovers. It's a buff. It's a buff. I like it. I love Landscaper, and this is like right. I like this buff because Landscaper is like right on the edge of being what I consider a viable card. It's just a little, it's just too weak, but now is the 1 extra health good enough? Only time will tell. We got bonus track Bucket Boy coming up, which again, the problem is that it's a 4 cost. It'll be a 4-4 armor now, which is very, again, that's high stats for a 4 cost card. 3-4, it's like a 3-5 basically with the armor, is understated. 4-4 with armor is very good. And then you also have the ability. This ability, again, is only good against the Mega Grow class. That's the reason why you don't see the functionality of this. Super, super useful. Only Mega Grow does bonus attacks. As opposed to Wingnut, on the plant side, every zombie class does bonus attacks. Brainy does bonus. Everything has Frenzy. Frenzy counts as bonus attack. There's no Frenzy plants. Only the Mega Grow class does bonus attacks or has Double Strike. But it's cool. It's a nice big card now at 4-4 armored. Maybe this will see some play. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think, especially when you compare it to what's coming next. There's going to be another 4-cost card in the same class that I think is becoming ridiculous now. This is one of the most buffed cards throughout the series of changes of PvZ Heroes. I think this started as like a 0-5. Then they tried 2-5. Then when they went 3-5, and now it's 3-6. This is a really, really hard card to deal with drawing on turn 4. I think this is going to see more play. Again, the difference there, 5 and 6 health is not huge, but 6 health on turn 4, man? It's like almost like, how could you not run this now? You know? The problem with King is that its condition of having it survive and another minion survive on the board is circumstantial. That's the reason why Zombie King. And then you kind of have to build a deck around it. But 3-6 is not even a liability. 3-6 is a very high stat card. That's like 3-6 is like, how often do you see? I'll tell you what a 4-cost 3-6 looks like, just for reference. It's like Parasol Zombie. Like, this card lives forever. I know it's untrickable. That's a huge amount of health for a 4-cost card. I'm excited. I'm excited for the King meta, guys. Rust Bolt Leap decks is going to become the meta. Alright, here's one. Next is going to be Coffee Zombie, going from 4-3 base stats to 5-4. So it gets a 1-1 buff. So when you would play this, you'd get a 5-4 on the board, and then everything else gets a 1-1 buff and Frenzy. Now, instead of getting an understated 6-cost 5-4 with an ability, now you're getting a pretty good statted 6-5 Frenzy. With the ability, of course, to all the other zombies. I like this. I wonder if this, I think, could really be the difference between Coffee Zombie, a tempo card, a finisher, literally the difference between being viable or not. I'm excited for Coffee Zombie. It's still probably a little outclassed by, going viral, but this does have a place because, again, it's giving you a monster on the board now. 6-5 is the big deal. Much scarier on turn 6 and 5-4. Then we got Battle Cruiser, 6-5, which is protected when it pops out anyway. So this thing is that, the problem, but anyway, it's going to have 6 health now. So the next turn will be harder to deal with. The problem is just being an expensive gravestone, being circumstantial in terms of its ability being good. Obviously, on a full board, it's always going to be amazing, but you're not always getting this on a full board. I don't look at this buff being very significant. The 1 extra health to a card anyway, that's a 6-cost 6-5, which is decent stats. Now 6-6? Okay. It has Cobb Cannon stats now. It's filling the void of 6/6s left in the game by the Cop Cannon nerf. I don't really know. Ducky Tube's next. Ducky Tube going from 1-1 to 1-2. So the problem with Ducky Tube was it not growing every turn. Like, you know, the block meter. This can mess up the block meter. It also does... What does 1 damage on turn 1? I'm just trying to think, like, what kills Ducky Tube on the plan side that only does 1? I don't even know. Admiral Navy Beam now? It trades well into Admiral Navy Beam. Slow clap. It just develops too slow. Like, I would love to see this 1-1 Bullseye. I think would be very, very cool as a buff. Oh, Lightning Reed. Doesn't die to Lightning Reed anymore, guys. It still dies to Banana Bomb. But on turn 2 now, it's going to be a 2-3. And okay, I see it. If you play this as a 1-2, if it hits face, now it's a 2-3. So now it's not dying to... Okay, the health grows every turn. So getting off to a good start with that health. I hear you. I think that's a good argument for this being good. And on turn 3 now, it could even be a 3-4, which is an overstated card. Very, very difficult to deal with in the water lane. Maybe this is good. It didn't seem very good, but I'm reading the chat a little bit, and on turn 2, it'll be a 2-3. Very strong argument there, my friends. All right, we're moving on to High Diver. This one's cool. I like this one now. High Diver, instead of being a 2-3, is going to be a 3-2. So after the buff, it used to be a 3-4, which was, you know, 3 cost 3-4, where you need the water lane to be open, you need the heights lane to be open. If you run even 2 of these in this deck, you're already fighting for a lot of real estate. You're fighting over 2 lanes. Now, it's going to be a 3-2, which will be buffed to a 4-3. So I think this is a proper aggro card, especially going in the water lane. Like running a couple of these in an... I mean, imagine the Infinity deck. You know the Infinity deck with all the pirates and the overshoot and the line dancing zombies? Like, you just run 2 zombie High Divers in that for an amphibious, you know, I mean, like, amphibious threat. 4-3. You can't run 4 in a deck, but run 2. Run 2 of them. I think also being a 3-2 is better than a 2-3 on turn 3, because then it doesn't lose trades. Like, even if you have the heights or water lane filled, I feel like the 3-2 doesn't brick as hard, because at least it's even trading with whatever it bumps into, as opposed to 2-3 it's just not doing damage. Like, at least a 3-2 is doing something to your opponent's face. Anyway. Here's Firefighter. I'm looking forward to Tomb Raiser. We will get there in a second. Firefighter is 4-5 to 5-5. Again, it has a really huge liability, but this is a nice... Again, we talked about the difference between 4 and 5 attack. This goes from a medium threat to a big... This is a big, big boy. I mean, this is like a Garg already on turn 4. Maybe there's something here. No, it's so bad, but it has so much stats. Let's see, guys. Pogo, I don't like this. Pogo going from 2-2 to 2-1. So the way to nerf Pogo would be to make it 1 attack, not 1 health. The whole reason Pogo's so good, besides for being, you know, Pogo Mug, is just because sometimes that 2 damage really makes a difference. Like, it's just taking out a minion that's already been damaged, you're blocking that lane, you're killing a minion, you're doing that 2 damage, and then you're bouncing something else. It just does a lot. Now, at 2-1, I don't think it changes the card really at all. Again, you need Pogo to live an extra turn in case you don't mug on turn 5. You mug a turn later, so it's a little easier to kill the Pogo. I don't think this makes a big difference. 1-2 would make a lot of sense to me. 1 attack, not 1 health. This card, at 2 health on turn 4, it's dying no matter what anyway. It's so rare that this 1 health is going to make a difference, in my opinion. Alright, here's a wild buff. I don't even know where this one's from. Tomb Raiser is not a great card at 3-4. It's hard to activate because, again, it has to hit face. Turn 4 is a very common turn where you're going to get blocked, too. It's the 4th turn. It's the 4th shot. Tomb Raiser going from 3-4 to 5-3. This is a monster! A 5 attack! Especially because the whole mechanic of Tomb Raiser makes it want to go face. This is a card you gotta stick in a laser base alpha. And then it's worth it because you get another gravestone. Now it's insanely worth it. It's doing 5 damage in that laser base alpha. It's also trading up with everything. I mean, you could just play. There's nothing that's going to trade well against a 5-3 on turn 4. I mean, this is such a huge buff. 4-4 would have made sense, to be honest. 5-4, but you know what? 5-3. I think 5-3 is better than 4-4, in my opinion. Lies to Berry Blast, maybe 4-4 would have been better. But either way, I love the fact that it's getting buffed. This is one of my favorite cards in the game that's so hard to get the value from. This is a monster. I mean, an absolute monster. Love it. All right, next we're going to go... All right, so Blowgun Imp, living up to its name, being a 5-cost 3-3, if you know, you know, is now going to be a 5-cost 3-4. It doesn't... If you want a card that's going to do 5 damage, make it Blowgun. Don't make it 2. 5-3 would make sense for this card. Now, it's a big boy with strike through. It's like an Astrocado. Do it to Blowgun. Do it to Tomb Raider. Didn't need that. This needs the 4-5 attack. It doesn't need health. What does the health do? What does the health do? Oh, so you have your 3 damage coming in more on turn 5. It just doesn't... Honestly, 5-3 Blowgun Imp, I love it. I would love that to death, and I don't... Even 4-3, I don't even think 4-3 would be good enough. 5-3 Blowgun Imp would have been cool, but now it's gone from nothing to nothing. The 1 extra health for a 5-cost card doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And we're going to go to the last card here in the mining. Man, this video took a long time. Zombot Stomp. Going from 7 to 6. That's cool. This is the card we really only ran in complete troll decks. It had a lot of success with the Undying Pharaoh. Or sorry, not Undying Pharaoh, where you play Unthawed Viking, the instead. And you freeze them, and then you bounce everything off the board. 6, that's a big buff. Decreasing the cost of any card is a huge buff. Huge buff. Is this viable? 6? It means you have Pogo, Mug, Zombot, Stomp. You can run those 3 cards in succession now. And especially now, by the way, unrelated, indirect, and it's very related, but indirectly, the Sneaky class got a lot better. The Gravestones are all better because the Guardian class is worse. The Guardian class, the Triceratops, the automatic run, the Galactic Cactus, and Photosynthesizer is getting nerfed. It just means fewer people are playing Guardian, which means indirectly Pogo Mug is back, baby. That's what's gonna happen. No one's gonna run Guardian anymore. Let's be real. Pogo Mug, Zombot Stomp, the new meta is here, guys. Get ready for it. Anyway, that was, again, no guarantee any of this is gonna happen, but it feels imminent, man. Again, I talked a lot. I didn't do data mining myself. I don't do that. But I talked a lot to Flowerman Flower and, had a nice long conversation about the legitimacy of this, and it seems pretty legit. I hope this happens, man. I mean, we haven't had a balanced patch in years and years. And these are a lot of really meta Cob Cannon. Just freaking, Triceratops. Like, they really did address there's a lot of really silly ones. Like Cyborg, but like pets now becoming this viable, I love it, man. Oh, did I skip something? I skipped Whipvine. What else did I miss? Everyone's telling me I skipped one, guys. Whipvine.
Saving best for last.
What else did I?
Happy birthday balance changes fry.
Everyone's spamming in the chat. I missed one. Whipvine, let's go back and actually pull up the card to give Whipvine its proper. This is honestly one of my favorite cards in the game that I never use because it's so outstatted by just 5 by like Gatling P. Whipvine's gonna go from 5-5 to 6-5. 6-5 is a big boy. Those big little bits of damage you're adding to these sort of finisher cards. Is this gonna make Whipvine viable? There's some synergy too with the movement. Like you can open up a lane and then do 6 damage. There's something about this having a lot of attack, which makes it, kind of synergetic with its ability. I love it. Whipvine was actually viable. I run this at 5 cost 6-5. That's a hard-hitting card with a good ability. It's better than Sumo, better than Rodeo Guard, because again, Sumo, you don't know what they're going to play. It's like the Shamrocket. In Sumo, you don't know what they're going to play that turn. Whipvine, the zombies are already on the board unless they're getting teleported in. So this ability is very strong. It's not quite Gatling Beast strong, but not every deck has to be Ps. Maybe after all these buffs and nerfs, every deck will be Ps. After Podfather sees a 2-3, man, I love the Black Eyed Peanut. There's a lot of these are really... I know I'm very cynical and skeptical about a lot of this stuff, and I think a bunch of these, particularly the Bean Counter, very misinformed, but overall, there's a lot of really good stuff. And I'll take anything at this point. Forget all my complaints. I'll take all my complaints and chalk them up to I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Just do it. Just do it, PopCap. We need something. We haven't had a balance change in years. We need this. As a community, we need this. I'm really grateful in advance if this actually comes to fruition, though. I'm really, really excited. Did I miss anything else, guys? Anyway, a shout out to the janitor who works at the PopCap studio for sneaking into the computers and throwing this balance change in. I hope we see it. I really hope we see it. I'd love to play around with the meta that doesn't have Triceratops and Cob Cannon, man. If there's 2 cards on the plant side that are oppressive, I mean, Time to Shine is a different monster, but that's gotta be it. Anyway, guys, that's all for now. If these balance changes come into effect, we'll obviously have a whole slew of new decks that we are going to be trying. My gosh, Hardy is going to be so freaking good with this leftover card, man. Hardy's already strong. I'm just salivating for this battle, for this change. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. This is Fry. Oh my gosh. Wait, is this a pet card? No. Leftovers isn't a pet card, right? Holy smokes! I didn't even think about that. Smash Pets is the new meta. I love it. I love it. Smash Pets meta. This is what it's come to, guys. Smash Stonks just went way up. The 2 classes that got buffed the most here have got to be the Beastly and the Hardy class. Think about it. Of everything.